how to build a chat app using Flutter and the OpenAI API. This app will allow you to ask it any question and it will reply to you using the power of OpenAI's ChatGPT 3 model. So whether you are looking to learn more about how to integrate an API into your Flutter app or just want to build something fun, this tutorial is for you. I would like to extend a special thank you to Hadi Kachmar for generously sharing his paid Udemy course with us for free. So let's get started.
Also, I am a 5-star rated instructor on Udemy and I have 6 different courses related to Flutter. I covered a lot of topics such as REST API, payment gateways, Firebase, and so on. Feel free to check this page, and of course you will find this link in the description of this tutorial or this video. So if you have used ChatGPT, basically this is the same thing. Okay, so we can send any message here. So let's say hello, let's say what is Flutter, for example, and send it. Then you will have this loader here, and then you will have the answer just like that. So this is basically similar or just the same as a ChatGPT, and we are using the ChatGPT AI, okay? This API is being provided by the OpenAI company, which is the company that created this model, okay? Of course, later on, I will talk more about it. Now, one more thing about this app is that the user can select the model. And of course, the chosen model will affect our results. So if I press on this 3 dots in here, so we have this drop-down button, which is was loading initially. So if I press on it, and now, of course, here you have too much models. Okay, so for example, if I use the text DaVinci 01, and now I press here, and now if I press or send any message, I will send the same message and say, for example, what is Flutter, and send it. And now I'm getting different response. Okay, so if you choose different models, you will get slightly different results because depending on the company, how they trained these models. They might have used different data for these models to train it and different architecture. I don't want to go deeply in data science things since this is a Flutter course, but I hope that you know a bit about artificial intelligence, so you have more and better understanding of how the model works and how this application works exactly. Okay, so basically this is our application, but of course later on I might add other things because the API provides us with really cool stuff such as generating images and searching for images, for example. Okay, so I might update the application and add more features to it. But basically the main course will be based on what I showed you. Okay, so this was all for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one. Hi everyone. So this lecture I just want to talk a little bit about the code on GitHub. So the full code will be available on GitHub and you can find it in the master branch, okay? You will find also different branches related to each lecture. And to each lecture, you will find the source code link in the description or attached to the sources if you are watching on Udemy, okay? So if you want, for example, this lecture, you can press here and you can get the code. I made this as a video because I know most of you doesn't read the articles, so I prefer to make it clear like that. Thanks, and see you in the next one. Hi again. So in this tutorial, let's set up our application and check the packages that we need, and let's add it to the pubspec.yaml file. Of course, I already added it, and in order to be able to follow this course without having any issue, I want to mention that you need to have a little bit of knowledge in Flutter. So I want you to know a little bit, at least, about the provider state management and how to add images, what does widget means, and how to add packages, for example, in the PubSpec.yaml file. So I want you to be beginners in Flutter at least to be able to join this course. Okay? I didn't talk about it in the introduction because I know most of you might skip it, so I put it here. Okay? So make sure that you have already this knowledge. And if you don't and you want to continue watching this course, feel free to do it. But if you're not able to continue with me, please stop, take a beginner course, then come back to this course. Okay? So now let's go to the browser. And in here, in order to install any packages, we need to go to the pub.dev. In my case, as I said, I added the packages and the PubSpec.yaml file here. And of course, every time we add a new package, we need to call the process and run our application again to make sure that the application is still running without having any issue. Sometimes you might get an error, for example, related to the minimum SDK, so you need to fix it. Okay? For these packages, as far as I'm concerned, you will not have any issue. Okay? So here I opened 4 tabs. Let's start from this package. So this is the HTTP package. Later on, we will be using it to make API requests. In order to install it, you press on this tab and scroll down a little bit and you copy here, and then you add the package name here below this Cupertino icon, and the indentation matter here, so you need to be careful. Okay? Once you save it, once you add it, you need to save it or press on this icon, or you can open the terminal, for example, and you can type Flutter packages get like that. And this will save this file, the PubSpec.yaml file, and it will download the required packages. Okay, so now we finished the HTTP package. Let's go back. And now I'm searching for something called provider. This provider will be using it for the state management. Okay, so you go to this tab, and then in the README you can see the documentation for this provider. And in my all courses, I use this provider state management, which is really good, and it is recommended by the Flutter team. Okay, so this is why I really like it. Now, in order to install it, you press on the installing tab and you copy here, and then you add it to the PubSpec.yaml file, which is I already added here. Same for the other packages. For this one, it is the Flutter Spin Kit. If I press on the README, I can see the documentation and this package. Of course, now you know why I will use it. We will be using it, of course, to show a loader when we send a message. Okay, so if I go to our application here, if I say, for example, hello, and let's say how are you, like that, and then send the message, and in here you can see the loader. Okay, so this is why we need this package. Of course, we can build it from the scratch, but we can just use this package. And the last final package that we will be using it in our course is the animated text kit, and I think now you know why. Okay, so here our application again. So I'll send hello and send it. And now, as you can see, this text is being animated. So this is just like the ChatGPT. Okay. So I'll send another message. Give me a long text, for example, send it. And now we will have the response soon. Here it is. Okay, so this is really cool. Okay, so it's done. Okay, so this was all for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one. Hi guys, this is the end of the following lecture. Okay, so what I wanted to say is that you can find the starter code on the GitHub. Of course, now the repository is private. Later on, it will be public when I publish this course. So in order to get this starter code, you need to press on the branches, and you can find it on the starter app here. Okay, so you can clone this link, or you know how to clone it. Okay, and moreover, you can find attached also a zip file to each lecture. So what I basically do is to add the lib, usually, for example, and the assets and the PubSpec.yaml file, and compress it to a zip file. And this file, you can use it as a reference and you can paste it in your application directly or compare it if you don't want to use the final code from GitHub. Okay, so I will put these data online so you will have access to it. Now, enjoy the next lecture. Hi guys, and welcome to this lecture. In this tutorial, we will set up the structure of our application, and we will add the required images, and we will edit the theme. Okay? So let's get started with the theme. And to know more about it, I already have also a video on my YouTube channel in here on how to implement dark and light theme. This video is 30 minutes where I explain the theme and how to use it in details, and you will be able to do multiple themes and different themes. Okay, so I strongly recommend you to watch it before starting with this lecture. Now, I will close this. And before that, we started changing the code. I want to tell you that I added the images and the asset folder, then images, and here we have 3 different images. So we have the chat logo, we have the OpenAI logo, and we have the person logo. So we will be using these 3 images later on, and of course, in order to be able to use it, we need to add it to the pubspec.yaml file. We need to add the path just like that, okay? Now, let's get back to our code in the main, and for the theme, let's start doing our work. So, I will delete all of this, save it, and now let's add the scaffold background color. So for the scaffold background color, we need to use just the same color as the ChatGPT, okay? So now what I'm going to do is to show you here. Here's the ChatGPT. So I will consider here this area is the scaffold background color, and this color is the card color. So what we can do is to create a constant file and the lib here, .dart, and then we will need to define the scaffold background color and the card color. So I will just copy it and paste it here, and of course we need to import the material package, okay? So now I will copy this, get back to the main.dart file, paste it here, and import the constants class, and add semicolon here, and restart the application. And as you can see, the scaffold background color directly got changed. Okay, we have this home page is being used here. In order to change the scaffold background color, you can add in here background color and choose any other color that you want, okay? So this is, I explained in details and the tutorial I showed you here, okay? So make sure to watch it. Now, let's continue our work. So for the theming here, we need to add the upper theme also. So what can we do is basically add upper in here, upper theme, and then we define the upper theme just like that. And what I want to do is to give it the color, which will be the card color, okay? Just like that. Of course, you can add things like elevation, background color, and so on. In my case, I will just keep it like that. One more last thing, I hate this banner, so I will just remove it. In our case, we can add the debug for the material app. So in here, we say debug show checked mod banner and put it equal to false. Now let's set up the structure of our files. So I will create a folder named screens, and this will handle the main screens in our application. Second, I will create a new folder called models, and this will handle the models for our application. The third one will be the providers file. This will be for the state management. The fourth one will be the constants, like that, and this constants will handle our application constants, okay? So I will move this file to it, like that. Then we will need the services. And these services, for example, later on we will create an API service and an asset manager service, and you will see why we will use the asset manager later. Okay, so for example, let's say here services, like that. And yes, this is all actually. Okay, so I prefer this structure, and it is the best for me. It's very clear to understand. And you can also add another folder which is called widgets, and this is will handle the global widgets for your application. Okay, so before that I end this tutorial, I will just create one file and the services, which is I will name it the assets manager.dart. Okay, so basically this file we will edit and manage our images. Okay, so in our case we have these 3 images. So I will copy this path, come here, and create a class called assets manager, like that. And in here, let's initialize a static so that we can call later on the class name and call the name of the variable here. So I will define a string and name it image path, and now paste what I have, like that. And of course, it's gonna be a string. And I will remove this forward slash. And now we can initialize the path for all of the images. So what I'm gonna do is to cut this, copy this, and then here I will define the user image, and then we can get this image path like that, and then add the forward slash here, and then the first image is the person image. Okay, so we can add it just like that. We do the same thing for the other 2 images. So this one, it will be the OpenAI logo, and the last one will be the bot image. So I will add it like that, and that's it. Okay, so let us delete in the main file. Let's get rid of this file, and let's add a new file in here, and let's name it the chat screen, which will be our main screen. So in here, let's add a stateful widget like that, and let's name it chat screen. And in here, we need to add a scaffold, and then we need to give it the body. And as a body, I will show an image, for example. So to display it, I will display it as the center. So let's give it in here an image.asset. And now we can call our class that we defined here. And then we need, of course, to import it. So once we import it, we can get our images like that here. Okay. Now, if I remove this static from here, I won't be able to use it. Okay. Even if I comment yes, for example, and I try to use it here, I can't. Okay. So it must be static, like that. Now, if I come here, I will have these suggestions. So let's show, for example, the OpenAI logo, like that. And then let's copy this name, and instead of this widget, let's return our widget. And of course, we need to import it like that. Now I will start the application, and let's see what will happen. Okay, so here it is. We have the scaffold background color, and we have this image is showing like that. Okay, so later on in the next tutorial, we will proceed by building the chat screen. I'll see you there. So in the last tutorial, we set up the theme of our application and the structure. Now in this tutorial, let's start building this screen. So in order to do that, let's go to the chat screen file, and then let's add the app bar for our scaffold. So I'll get back here, and then let's initialize in here an app bar, and then we need to give it the title and the image. So for the image, we can add a leading, and we can use image.asset, and we need to give it the OpenAI logo, so this logo. Okay, and I'll add some padding to it. So let's wrap it by padding, just like that. And I will save it. And now here it is. Let's add some elevation for it. So I will use true as elevation. And then we need to add the title. So in order to add the title, it is easy. We just need to add the title argument, and then we need to add text. And in here, let's name this text ChatGPT. Now save it. And here it is. Okay. Now let's continue. We have the chat screen here, which is not appearing because I didn't send any message yet. So let's say hello. And now we will have this chat screen, and we will have this loader, and we will have this text field and this button down below. Well, so I will get rid of this, and instead I will use a column. So let's delete it. And in here, let's initialize a column. And let's wrap it by a safe area. Like that. And let's add a semicolon like that, just for the format. Okay, so the first child will be our chat screen. So in order to do this, I will initialize a ListView.builder. Like that. We need to give it the item builder, context, and then we need to give it the index. And in here, we need to return something. For the count, I will use item count, let's say, of 6. And I will return just for now a text. And let's say, hello, this is a text, for example. Now save it. I still have an error. We need to add comma in here, and that's it. Now I'm having an overflow error. Simply, we can fix it by wrapping it by a flexible widget. Okay. Now I'll go back to our application, and here it is, and here's how it looks. Fine. This UI will be working on it at the next tutorial. For now, let's finalize the main screen. So when I was sending the message, we show in here a SpinKit loader. So what I'm gonna do is to add in here a Boolean, and I will name it as typing, and I will put it for now a true. Okay. This error, I mean these lines, just to make it final, but later on, of course, we'll change it. We'll be changing this value when the user is sending a message and when the response is being generated. Okay. So in here, I'm gonna do an if statement. So for the if statement, you can type it like that. For example, if it's typing, we need to show our widget, and if not, we can show a sized box dot shrink. Okay. So in here, we can show, for example, let's say a container, and you can do an if statement just like that. This is okay, but if you have more widgets, if this condition is being satisfied, this way it doesn't work very well. I mean, you can optimize the code more. So what I'm gonna do is to add an if statement in here. So let's say if is typing, and now in order to add many widgets as what you want, you need to add this spread operator, and now you can add as many widgets in here as you want. Okay. So in our case, I will add the SpinKit, and I will use the 3 bounce dots. So so this one, basically. Let's add the color. So for the color, I will use the white color. And then for the size, let's use 18. And now I will save it. Okay. Let's get back to our application, and now you can see it here. Here is our loader. Of course, now if I put this one to false, you cannot see here anymore anything. Okay, I will save it again. Okay, so now it disappeared. Perfect. But let's just keep it true in our case, and now we need to start making the text field and the bottom widget. So for that, we will be using a row. For the text field inside of a row, you need to wrap it by flexible or expanded widget. So let's define an expanded widget here and then initialize our text field. For the text field, we need a controller and we need a Fox node. Okay, so in here, let's define a Fox node. Or we can just rely, in our case, on the controller. So let's define text editing controller. And I will name it text editing controller. We can define it directly like that, or we can define it in the end state, initialize it. So let's say text editing controller equal to text editing controller, just like that. Of course, the controllers need to be disposed. So let's dispose it, just like that. And in here, let's add a late, so that because we are initializing it in the init state, so we can initialize it as late. So in here, let's add the controller, just like that. And then we need to add the onSubmitted. So once the user press directly enter or the keyboard, press next or done on the keyboard, the message will be sent, just like the WhatsApp. So in here, it takes a value. You can name it whatever you want. And in here will be our function, okay? So let's say send message, like that. Then we need to do some decoration for it. So for the decoration, we need to give it the hint text. And of course, for the decoration, we need to call the input decoration. And I will use collapsed. And we need to give it the hint style, hint text. And now let's say, how can I help you? Like that. Or let's remove the capitalization from here, and that's it. Now let's save it and see how it looks like. I will start it. Okay, so here it is. I know you cannot see it clearly, but here it is. Okay, so now let's add some decoration just to make it visible for the user. And in order to do that, let's add the hint style, like that. And it is a text style. And now we can specify the color for it. So we can use white color or gray color, let's say. Like that. Now save it, and here it is. Now it is in gray, and it appears better than before. But now if I tap something, it is also, again, that is in black. So in order to fix this, we need to add style here, and of course it is text style, and we can just copy this. Okay, so I'll just paste it here, and in my case, I will use here white. Let's add semicolon here, and a comma, and add the cons keyword, and save it, and that's it. Okay, so now as you can see, the text is white. Now what I want to do is to wrap this row by a material, or you can wrap it by a container just to give it the color. And in my case, I will give it the card color. Now save it, and here the card color is appearing. To add some spacing, we can add in here sized box and give it height of 15, like that, just to add some spacing between these two widgets. And let's wrap the row by some padding. So let's wrap it by padding, just like that. Now the last thing is that we need to add the second child for this row, which is the icon button. So we need to give it the onPressed, which is again the send message button or function. And for the icon, we will use the icon of send, let's say this one. And we need to add the color for it. Let's give it the white color, just like that. And that's it. Okay. So it looks pretty much as this one. We just need to edit the chat screen, the chat widget here, and we need to add this button. So in order to add the button above for the app bar, we just need to add the actions for it. So in the app bar in here, let's add the actions, and then we add an icon button, and then For the icon, we can use the more icon. So I'll just paste it here, and now add the const keyword and format our code. Let's add a comma here and format our code, and that's it. Now I will save it for the last time, and here it is. Now we have this 3 dots in here. And the next tutorial, we will start implementing the chat widget. So this was all for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one. Hi again. So now let's continue our work and start building this widget, the chat messages widget, which is look like that. So for that, let's create a widget in here and let's name it chat widget .dart, like that. And let's initialize a stateless widget and let's name it chat widget in here, like that. And now in order to show some dummy chat, I will create a new list. So in the constants here, I created something and I will paste it here. So basically here we have a list and here we have a map similar to JSON files. So in here we have a key called message and another key called the chat index. In our case, when the user send a message will be at chat index 0 and the response will be at the chat index 1. Okay, so with this we can do some if statements in order to change the UI. And now we will be displaying this messages on the screen. So we come back to the chat widget and in here let's initialize a column and let's give it children, and of course it is a row, and the first child of this row is an image, and to not forget we need to give it the children, absolutely. So the first child in here would be, let's say, asset manager dot the bot image, or let's start with the user image. Okay, like that. Let's format our code, and now what I will do is to wrap this row by some padding, and then I will wrap this padding by material widget just to give it the color. Okay, so like that, and let's give it color, and for now I will give it the card color, like that. Now what I will do is to use this chat widget in here for the list view.builder. So instead of this text, let's use our chat widget, like that. Now restart the application and let's go back. And now it is like that, and we are having an error. Okay, so let's add height and width for the image here, like that. And here it is, it looks like that. Now next to this image, we need to add our text. So let's add text here, and let's say here will be the message. Save, and here it is. Now before that I continue working on this, because the text is black and it will be always in black. What I prefer to do is to create a text widget. So this text widget, I will add this file now here, and I will explain to you. So basically here we have a text, we have the label for the text, and in here we have the style. So I'm giving for the style the color, which can be null here. I'm giving it the font size, and you can also make it nullable, but in my case I put default value for it here equal to 18, and finally the font weight. So now this text widget, we can come back here and we can use it here. We need to import it, of course, and we need to give it the label, and let's say hello, here our message, like that. And now as you can see, we have it like that, and the color is white, and you can give it the font size, color, and font weight, and you can add other arguments for it. For now I will just keep it like that, and It would be nice if we add some spacing between the image and the text, and in order to do that, we can simply add a sized box between two widgets, just like that. Okay? Perfect. So now let's start showing our messages. So we need to show these messages. So for that, we need to use this chat message in order to pass it to this widget. So basically what we can do is the following. So we can use initialize in here a string and another integer to know the chat index. So the first one would be the message, and then we will have the int, the chat index, like that. Now let's add the field parameters here. And of course we got an error here because we need to pass it in here. So what I'm gonna do is to pass it directly. So we can call now the chat messages. Let's make sure that it is imported. Okay. Now in here we need to give it the index, and then we need to give it the key, which is in our case the message, and let's remove this const. Then we will need to use the chat index, and it is the same, but let's make sure of the keys. So we have the message like that and chat index. Okay, I'm still having an error. It is because this one, an object, we didn't specify the type of this list or map in here. So what we can do in this case here, we can convert it to a string, and for this one we can convert it to a double. So what I'm gonna do is to say double.parse, paste this and convert it to a string, and actually it is an int, so just like that. Perfect. So now we have it. I will start the application. Okay, now it is working. Okay, now let's do some if statements in order to show the correct images. So the first thing would be that we need to check this color. So what I'm gonna do is to check the chat index. If it is equal to 0, we can show the scaffold background color, and if not, we can show the card color. Save, and here you can see it. So the first one is the user, then the bot. User, then bot. Okay. Let's now show the correct image, and for that, we can do the same if statement. So let's say if it's chat index equal to 0, we show the user image, and if not, we show the bot image. Save, and here it is. Now, for the label, we need to show the message. So, paste it here. Now it's not const anymore, save it. And here it is. Now it is working correctly. But we have this overflow error, and later on we need to add the animated text to the reply from the bot. So in order to avoid this error, let's wrap this text by an expanded widget, like that. Now, as you can see, we have this image in the middle, and in order to fix it, we can just add the cross-axis alignment to center in the row. Save it. It should be start, sorry. Like that, and now we have it in the beginning. Perfect. Now, the last thing is that we need to add the buttons for in here, the like and dislike button. So what we can do is we can add the if statement, as I showed you before, or we can just add an if statement like that. So if it is equal to 0, let's show a sized box, which is very optimized. And then if you use this widget, it's better than using an empty container, okay? Now you can use in here the row, and for the row, I will just add the code for it here, like that. Okay, and in here it should be like that. and save it. Now here it is. It looks pretty much just like the ChatGPT. Okay, perfect. So with this, we finished the main things and side of the chat screen. In the next tutorial, we'll start implementing this button. So when we press on it, we are showing the bottom bar. So we will start working on this. I'll see you on the next one. Hi again. So let's keep going. And now let's start implementing this model bottom sheet. So let's go back to our application. And for that, let's go to the chat screen. And we have this function here. So we can start writing the code to show this model bottom sheet. So the function, it is named show model bottom sheet. And if I hover on it, it is a future. So it would be better to await it like that. And for the builder, it takes a context like that. And now we need to return something. Okay. So in here, we need to return our widgets. So in our case, we have a text, which is the chosen model text. And then we will have the model drop-down widget. So we have this text, then we have this drop-down widget. So for that, I initialize this row, and the first child, of course, will be the text to show the chosen model. So it will be like that. Let's import the text widget and add the const keyword here, like that. And we have an error. Let's add the semicolon like that, and that's it. Now let's save it and press here. And now something happened, but we cannot see it. So let's start fixing it. So let's add the first thing, padding here. I will add 18. Let's add background color for this bottom sheet. And now let's try. And here it is. Now you can see it here. In my case, it is rounded. And to make it rounded, we need to add the shape. And it will be something like that. So we need to add the shape. And we need to give it this argument, rounded rectangle border. And then we can specify the border radius. In my case, I used vertical border radius just to give it on the top. You can use different things such as only, for example, all, and so on. Okay, now I will save it, open it again, and now it is rounded. Now we need to implement the drop-down button, but I would prefer to make it in another tutorial. So let's implement it together in the next tutorial. I hope that you try first to implement it by yourself, then see the solution with me. See you in the next one. In the last tutorial, we have implemented this model bottom sheet. Now we need to define the drop-down button here. But before that we get started, we wrote this code in here, which is a function, and for me, I prefer to keep the logic outside of the UI. So for that, I coded this function, and now we can create a new file and the services, and we can name it services or utils, for example. I will name it services.dart in here, and we can create a class called services in here, and then of course here capital, and then we can define a static method which will be a future of type void, and now we can name it let's say show model sheet. And now since it is a future, we need to add the async keyword here, so it will be like that. And now the error is gone. Now we can paste what we have, and we can import the required packages. So now we need to import the material package, the constants class, we need to pass in the context, and we need to import the text widget. So now let's pass in the context. So we can pass it as a required argument. So just like that. Now the error is gone. Now we can use this class in order to call this method. So in here we can await, and we can call the services class and show this model bottom sheet. Now restart the application and then press here, and here it is still working just like before. Now we need to create the drop-down button. For that, I will create a new file here and I will name it dropdown.dart. And now we can create a stateless widget or stateful widget, and you will see why. And now we can name this drop-down widget or model. So drop-down widget like that. Okay, so now we need to define the drop-down button like that, and we need to give it the items, and we need to give it the function onChanged. So for the onChanged, it takes a value, and we need to do something. So what can we do is I will convert this to a stateful widget, and then we need to define the current model or a string, for example. But in my case, I will define the current model because we will have a default model and we will have a chosen model. So we need to overwrite this current model, and later on it will be clearer for you. So don't worry. So let's say any current model, let's say model 1, like that. And then here we set state the current model and put it equal to the value, just like that. Okay, now we have an error on the value. We can convert it to a string like that, and that's it. Now we can give it initial value, or we need to give it this value, and we can put it equal to the current model. Let's name it current model, not models, like that. Okay, so what left in here is to add the items, which is a list of drop-down menu items. So we can create this list of items somewhere else, and then we can call it here. So we can define it in the constants, for example. Anyways, these are, in our case now, we will use dummy data, but later on we will be fetching it from the API. So now for the dummy data, I already created a list of models. I will paste it in the constants file here. If I come back to the drop-down file in here and I hover on it, it is a type of this type. So what we can do is to create a getter for it and the constants class. So in here, we can create a getter, and let's name it get models item, like that. And here we need to return something, and we don't have a class, so we don't have to add the static. And we need to return something, as I said. So let's define a list of this type. So I can copy this and say, for example, models items, and let's set it equal to this list, and then we can call generate to it. And to generate, we can call the models dot length, like that, and let's add the semicolon in here just for formatting. Okay, so we need to return something. In our case, we will return the drop-down menu items, like that, and we need to give it the child. In our case, it will be a text. I will use the text widget, and we can give it the label, and in our case it will be the models, and we need to pass in the index, like that. Let's give it size, font size of 15. Now format our code, and what we can do in here also, we can add the value, and the value will be also the models index, like that. And now we can return this model item here, and now the error is gone. So what we can do is now we can get this and use it, and here for the items, just like that. And we need to import this class, and that's it. Now we can use this widget inside of the services next to this text field. So in here, let's wrap it by flexible widget, and the child will be our widget, like that. and import it. And for the flex argument, I will give it 2. Now save or restart, of course. Press here, and now I have it here. Okay. Of course, we need to add the background color. So for the background color, you can add the drop down color and put it to the scaffold background color. And for the icon, we can use the color of white color. Okay, now save it, press again, and here it is. It looks like that. Now just one more thing is I want to add for this row the main axis alignment and put it space between. And now it looks like that. Okay, as I said, this data we will be fetching it later on from the API. And soon we will start with the API since we finalized everything for the UI for this application. Okay, the last thing left for the API is to animate this text just like ChatGPT as I showed you before, but this thing we will keep it later on when we start generating the responses. Okay, so this is for the UI part. I'll see you next with the REST API. We now arrive to the part that I think most of you are waiting. We will start integrating the OpenAI API in our application. So in order to do that, you need to go to this link. This link you will find it attached to this tutorial. So now let's go to the documentation. Then once it is loaded, scroll down and the API reference. You can press here on the introduction, and here you will find everything you need. Of course, here the tabs. You can press directly on this, for example, and it will take you to the next one. Okay, to the one you need. If you need the models, for example, you can directly press here. Now let's go step by step. For the authentication, you need something called API key. And I suppose that you already know what is API key and what is REST API. And if you don't, please watch the courses I made about the REST APIs and you will understand it perfectly. Okay, so we need this authorization and add the bearer and our API key. So we need this API key. In order to get this API key, we need to press here and then press on View API Keys. And in here, you can create a new secret key and you will have it. For now, I will go back. And then if we want to answer a question, we can go to making requests. So here they are talking about the API key. And in here we have an example. So this is until here what we call a base URL. And how did I know this? If you compare, for example, the model's request here, it is the same URL. So this is the base URL we have. Let's go back here again. Then we will need to add this content type. Then we will need to add the authorization, as I told you. Then we will need to add this to the body. Okay? And if you see here, we have this model and we have the name of the model. So this is why we need to fetch the models, because each model will give us different output. Perfect. So now before that we actually start using it in our code, we can test it using the Postman. So for that, I will open the Postman and then press here, File, New, then HTTP request. In my case, I will copy this URL, then paste it here. The method is actually post method. Then for the authorization, you need to press on the bearer token and add your token here. Then let's go back. We need to add the content type, and it is application JSON. So copy all of this, then go to the Postman, then go to the header here, and then scroll down, and in here in the key, paste what you have, and and fix it like that, and then add the value just like that. Okay, and be careful of the spacing. So the authentication that we added here, the authorization for the period token here, it is appearing also in here. Okay, and you can edit. Then let's go back. And finally, we have this JSON data. So let's copy all of this, then go back to the Postman. We press on the body. This API takes raw data, and we paste our data here, and then we press send. And here we got the response. So we have the model name here, and here we have the message. Okay, so if I change this, for example, hello, what is Flutter, and send another request, we will get this. Okay, and this token, if I change it, for example, to 100, hit send, and now I have the full answer that's showing here. Okay, so now I will remove this temperature because we will not using it. We will not use it, I mean, and we're still getting a response. Now, what I wanted to show you is that, for example, let's say change this name and send, and of course we should get an error, and here it is. And of course, in our codes, we need to make something to handle the errors, so I will explain it for you in details later on. But for now, I will just keep it like that. And now let's go back to the documentation, and here let's try the model also. So let's copy this, and in here it shows it is a get method. Let's press on the plus button, paste it here, and be careful of the spacing. And then we need the authorization only. So here in the authorization, just add the bearer token and now send the request, and now you will have it here. So this request actually is returning the whole model that we were showing here. So later on, we will fetch it from the API and we will display it here. And the ID actually what matters. So if I come back here, in this case, they used this model. Here, if I search, we can find it here as an ID. Okay? ID and root. Okay. So in our case, we need to save this ID. Now, before that I end this tutorial, what we can do actually is, for example, I will go back to the post method because it is shorter, and I will copy this, and here we can do, for example, JSON to Dart parser, let's say. And now you can go to this link and paste your data here and press generate Dart, and in this case it will generate the model class for you. Okay, and you will have this factory constructor here from JSON and to JSON also. This is a fast tool, you can benefit from it, but in our case I will explain it in details for you, and we will write it by our hands. We won't take it from here. Okay, but I just wanted to give you more information, so this is why I'm talking about it. So I think this was all for this tutorial. In the next tutorial we'll start fetching the models. Stay tuned and I'll see you there. Hi guys, and welcome back. In this tutorial, let's start fetching the models in our application. So for that, let's head back to our code and let's create a new file. Let's name it API services.jar. Then let's initialize it. So I will name it API service. Like that. Let's create a static function. It will be a future, and for now of type void. We can name it get models. Like that. Let's add the async keyword, and in here we can start writing our function. Now, to be able to use the API, we need to make HTTP requests. So for that, we will be using the HTTP package. And to handle the errors, let's wrap it by a try catch, like that. Okay. If an error occurred, I will print, for example, error, and let's print it just like that. Okay. Now in the try block, we need to make our request. So we call the HTTP package, then the get method. We need to give it the URL. Okay, and in our case, it is a URI. And the URL is this one. Let's copy it. And now we can paste it here like that. But as I said, it is a URI, so we need to convert this to a URI simply by calling URI.parse and paste what we have. Then we need to add the API key, as I showed you here. And in order to do that, we need to add the headers for this get method. So here we have this headers parameter, and then we need to give it a map. And the first one is the authorization, like that, and we need to give it the beater and our API key. So I'll paste it like that. And finally, we need to put our correct API key. For that, we can create a new file. Let's name it API consts.dart. And in here, we can put the base URL, which is this one. So let's say string base URL, and we put it here, just like that. And then we can put the API key. And after this tutorial, the API key would be different. So make sure to put your API key. Do not use mine, because I will remove it after finishing this tutorial. So here I put my API key. And then let's go back to the API service. And now instead of this, we can call our base URL. And in here, we can put our API key, just like that. After getting this response, we can decode it and we can print it to see what we have. So we can save this and a response, put it equal to this function, and now we can print this response. So now let's print this response, but first we need to decode it. And when we decode it, we will get a map, as you see in here, because the response is a map. Okay, let's keep going. So let's say map in here, or you can just define a var. So let's say response, like that, and call JSON decode, and now give it your response.body, like that. Now I'm having error here. Let's add a wait keyword here, and now that's it. This is a future function, so we must add a wait keyword here. Now we can print the JSON response. So let's say JSON response, and now let's print it like that, and that's it. So what we can do is to call this method and the sum and somewhere, for example, and for me I will call it for the send message. So here I will call the API service dot get models, and of course we need to await it, and we need to put it in a try catch block. Now catch like that, and if there is an error, let's print the error just like that. Now let's restart the application. And let's see what will happen. Okay, here's our application. Let's press here. Perfect. Here it is. Here our response. no error occurred, and we have our response just like what we have in here. We have this data, so we have it here also, data, and inside of our data there is this ID and so on, and this data is actually a list. Okay, perfect. Now before that we end this tutorial, I will do one more thing, is that we need to handle the errors. If you remember in the Postman, when we handled the errors, I mean, if I made a wrong URL, we will get an error. So we will get an error here and a map. It has message, type, and so on. Okay. So what we can do is, in the API services, we can check this response or the response body here. What we can do is to check this response if there is an error, and this error, it must match the error here, okay? So what I'm gonna do is to check if this is null, it means that we don't have an error. So let's say if it is different than null, it means that we have an error and we got a response as an error. We can throw HTTP exceptions and we can give it the message. In order to access the message, we need to access the error, then access the message, just like that. So in our code, we copy this, and then we copy this message, and we can give it here, like that. Okay, and moreover, we can print this. So print, let's just make it like that, and I will print it. And now what I will do is to change this URL, restart the application, and then let's test it and see what will happen. Here it is. Now it says JSON error, and here we have the message. Okay? And it's being printed twice because in our code we also added, in the chat screen here, we also printing the error. Okay? So I will end this tutorial here, and the next tutorial we will go deeper in our code and we will create the model for our models. Okay, so we will create this model class and save what we have and display it. I'll see you in the next one. Hi guys. In this tutorial, we will continue this function and start creating the model class for the models and do other work. So let's get started. For that, let's create a new file in here and let's name it models model.dart, and then in here create a class, name it models model, like that, and here see small, like that, and then we will be using the final string ID. This is what I care about. If you want to read something else, we can add, for example, created at or the root. So I'll show you the response here again. In our case, as I said, we need the ID, and that's it. You can access the root, which is here, and the created at object, and so on. Okay, so in my case, I will get these 3 arguments. So I will paste it here and create the model constructor. Now, one more thing, if you remember, I will copy this, go here, and go to the JSON to Dart parser, and paste our code here, and generate Dart. In here, you have this constructor, this factory constructor in here, which will get the data from JSON and convert it to your model that you want. So, in our case, we will be using the ID created at and the root. Let's get back. And in here, let's create a factory constructor and we call the class name, then call from JSON. You can name it whatever you want. And in here, it will take a map because the response is a map, string, and it will be dynamic. And in here, we can name it JSON. You can name it whatever you want. And then you can return in here your models model. Let's format it first. Okay, so for the ID, you can access this. Is this a JSON? And access the ID. Okay, like that. I know for now it's not very clear. When we finish this code, it will be better. Okay, so first one will be the ID. Then we will have the root. And then we will have the created at. Like that. Now in the API service, I want to return a list of models. So instead of void, let's return a list of models model. And I got an error because we need to return something here. We can't return, for example, the JSON response, but we need to return something that make sense. And of course, this is an error because the type is different. So what we can do is, in the models model, we can create a new function in order to do the work. So what I'm going to do is to create a static method, and it will return a list of models model. Okay, I will name it models from snapshot, and it will take an argument list, and I will name it here model snapshot. Okay, and here I'm getting an error because we need to return something. So let's stop over the model snapshot and map over it like Lupin, and then here we can return something, or this arrow, it means that we are returning something, so we can directly write it here like that. And then we can call from JSON this constructor that we made here, and then we need to give it our data like that. And then we need to convert this to a list. Here we need to convert it to a list, and that's it, and the error is gone. Okay, to make sense, I would name this data. Okay, so this data is actually our map here, and its name is data also. Perfect. So now I will go to the API service, and in here we can return what we wrote. So let's type models model dot models from snapshot, and now we need to give it a list. So what we can do is create an empty list, and I will name it temp, initially empty, and then we can loop over the JSON response data. Okay, as I said, this data is a list. It has multiple models. It has a lot of models. So what I'm gonna do is to type for var I and JSON response, and in here we access the data. Okay, then let's add to it I. Okay, or I can name this I, for example, value. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is to print it here. So let's say, for example, temp value, and then it will be printed. Now to show it clearly, I will use log. Okay, and I will comment this. And in here I will use also log, like that, and I will comment this. And I will give it to this temp. Perfect. Now I will restart the application. Oh, still having an error because we didn't return anything if we have an error. So we can use the throw like that. The error that now is gone. I know you might not understand this clearly now. I will just restart the application, test it, and then I will explain again everything for you. So restart it, and then press here, and let's see. Perfect. So this log is being called. Okay, and we have too much things. In here we have all the models. So now to make it clearer for you, what I'm gonna do is to print data ID. So basically I will loop over this list, the data list, and print all the IDs. Okay, so in order to do this, let's add the value like that and give it the ID like that. And to not forget, we need to add this. Now I will start the application better. Press here and let's wait. As you can see, here we have the list of the models. Okay. So now it might be clearer for you. So we have the list of the models like that. What I did here basically is to initialize an empty list, and I append all the data items to this list. And this list, I passed it to our snapshot, this function. So here we give it this list, and in here we are looping over this list, which is basically the temp list that it has all of these data. And in here we are calling the factory constructor that it will have access to the ID, the root, and everything. So basically, these two is similar to what I printed in here. So this temp, it has the values only without the IDs, and then we used it here, and then we loop over this list, and then we use this from JSON in order to get our data. Okay, I hope that it's clear enough for you now, and if it's not, please feel free to ask anything. And again, I hope that you already watched the course that I told you about. So I really hope that you already watched this course. It's freely available, and I explained more in details in this course, so I hope that you check it out. Okay, so now I think it would be better to stop working here, and in the next tutorial we will start implementing the provider class, and we will start showing our data and the drop-down widget. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Hi guys, so now let's proceed and start showing the models here. In order to do this, let's go to the drop-down widget, and then I will cut this code and I will paste it here just for reference. And now we will be using a new widget it's called FutureBuilder. As this FutureBuilder, it takes a builder argument and the future function. So for our future function, of course, now you know it, and we can use this function, the getModels function. For this builder, it takes a snapshot and context. So let's give it the context and a snapshot. So like that. Now let's do an if statement. Let's check if the snapshot, it has an error. So if this is the case, we can return a text. Let's say in the center, we can return a text, and we can use our text widget, and as a label, we can give the error, or we can call the snapshot dot error dot to string. Okay. We can do other if statements, such as we can check if the snapshot is null or the snapshot has no data. So if this is the case, we can return the empty container, for example, or sizebox.shrink. So what I'm gonna do here directly, I will add the return statement, and then we can check the snapshot.data if it is null, or we can check the snapshot.data.length if it is equal to 0, or we can directly check if it is empty. And in here we need to do a null check like that. And if this is the case, we can return a sized box dot shrink, like that. Let's add the const keyword, and if it is not the case, let's return our drop-down widget. So I'll paste it here now again and remove this. And for this drop-down widget, we can access now our data. So for this get item, we need to change this. So what can we do exactly is to copy this, and for now I will comment this because we won't use it anymore. So in here we can type it like that, and the length would be the snapshot.data length. Same for this one here, and same for this one here. Now I'm getting an error. We need to use in here the ID. And if you are wondering how can I access the ID here, it's because in here this function is returning a list of models. And to make it clearer for you, what can we do basically is to add it just like that, okay? And we need to import this class. Same for this one, we need to return the ID. Okay, and now we don't have any error anymore. So let's restart our application and let's see if it will work. And now we are having this error. So this error, basically because of this name, you need to use the name that it is already found. So in my case, I will use the text DaVinci 003 since we can find it here, okay? If you remember, it is here in the route and it is here for the ID. So you can use any other models, such as this one, for example. Okay, let's paste it instead of this one, restart the application, and now it should work. Perfect, here it is, but okay, we can view all of these models now, so it is working perfectly, but the wrong thing is that we have an overflow error. So how can we fix this is we can, for example, wrap this by a fitted box. Now save it, and yeah, the error is gone. Let's make sure. So press here again, and here it is, perfect. Now the error is gone. Now I want to show you something. For example, if I choose this text, let's say, and press here, and press again here, we got again this text DaVinci 003 as our chosen model. But for me, I already chose the DaVinci one. So we need a way to save this model that the user already chose. So in order to do that, here comes the state management and its importance. So we can use the provider state management in order to save the value of the chosen model, for example, and later on, when the user wants to choose it again, we can get this value and directly give it to the drop-down list. Okay, so I don't want to mix this tutorial, so I'll end it here. And then in the next tutorial, we will implement the provider class for the models. Stay tuned and I'll see you there. So as I said in the last tutorial, now let's create a provider class for the models. So for that, let's create a new file in here and let's name it models provider, like that. And we need to call the dirt. And in here we need to initialize the class, and I would name it models provider. And we can use with change notifier, but for now we will not really use it, but I'll just keep it like that for now. Okay, and if you don't know too much about this state management, I will try to explain here as much as I can, but again, please watch that course that I told you about. What I will do is to initialize a list of models. Model, we will not really use it, but I will just keep it for you if you want to make identification as this app. So let's create a getter for this list. So we say in here list model, so I'll just copy this and we say get and get models list, like that. And now we need to return the models list. Now let's define a string here and let's name it current model, like that. And initially let's put it equal to text DaVinci 003. Now let's also create a getter for this one. So what I'm gonna do is to copy this, paste it, and here it will be a string. And in here we need to return our current model, and in here I will say get current model, like that. Now we need to also set this model. So when the user choose a model here, I want to set this current model equal to the new model or a new chosen model. Okay, so we can in here create a setter function. So let's say current, set current model, and we need to pass in the new model. So in here it is a string, and let's name it a new model. And in here we need to call the current model and set it to the new model, like that. And now the provider, you can think about it as like a listener. So when there is a change, we need to tell the provider to listen to this change. In order to do this, we need to call the notify listener function. And in order to be able to listen to a widget, the provider needs to be a parent of this widget. And our highest parent is the material app, which is the highest widget. It is above of all the widgets that we have. So what can we do exactly is to add our provider above of this widget. So let's wrap it by a widget here, and we can say multi-provider, and in here it takes a provider's argument, and for this provider argument we need to add our model. So in order to add it, we need to define something here called change notifier provider, and they create here. We don't need this, and we can return our models provider. Models provider. Just like that. Okay, so now this provider will be able to listen to all the changes below of the material app. Now let's go back to our models provider, and now I will create function that we will not use. So basically the thing that we will use are these, and the list we will not use it, but I will just keep it so that if you want to fetch this model somewhere else, you can directly get it from this provider. Okay, so I will just create a function now to set this model list. So basically what can we do is to create a future and then list of model, so that this future will yield a list of models model. Now we can name this function get all models, and it will be, we need to add this async keyword, and we need to return something. Okay, so now we can set this model list equal to, if you remember, in the API service, we are returning here our list. So we can use this function in here directly. So we can call the API service dot get models, like that, and of course in here we need to await it, and now we can return our models list. Now of course this function we need to use it. So in the chat screen we were using it in here, this function, and also we were using this function and the drop down button. So in here, instead of using this method, we need to use the provider method. So in order to initialize the provider, we need to initialize it and the build, because we will require the context. Of course, you can access the context here also if you are in stateful widget, but you need to create a now function. But for now, let's just initialize it in here. So final models provider, and then we need to call the provider package, And now we say off. Oops, we need to import this provider package. And now we call off. We need to specify the type. It is models provider. And then we need to give it the context. And now I don't want to listen to it, so we can call false here, and that's it. Now we can call this models provider here, and then we can call this function, the get all models function, okay? That we just initialize it in here. Now restart the application and let's make sure that everything's still working correctly. Okay, everything's still working. Now, if I choose Ada, close it, open it again, we didn't fix this problem yet. The old current model still appearing. So we need to fix this. In order to fix it, let's go back to here. And what can we do is to remove this and make this string nullable. And it won't be a problem because if you check here for the value, it is nullable. Okay, so to start with, in the models provider, we created a function to set the model. And we are using here notify listener. So in here, we can call our provider. So we named it models provider, and let's call the set function. And in here, we need to give it our value like that. Perfect. And now we need to fetch the value that we have, the current model that we have. So what can we do is to set the current model here equal to the models provider.get current model. Now let's test it and make sure that it is working. Okay, let's see. Now I will choose Ada, close it, open it again, and now here it is, we have Ada. I will try again. I will choose if DaVinci, open it again, and here it is. Now we have the correct model here. Perfect. So I will recap what we did. We created this class in here. We created this current model. We also created a getter for this current model and a setter for this current model. Okay? These we didn't use, but later on, if you understand this concept, you can use it as what you want. So I gave you the code for it. As I said, the provider is a listener. So in order to be able to listen to any other widget, it needs to be a parent and the higher widget. So it will be a parent for this widget in order to be able to listen to it. So this is why I added this models provider above of the material app widget. And finally, we use this provider here. And because we don't have to listen to it, because we will fetch it just once, and no changes will appear. So we are using the function to get the models from the provider because we need to set our list here. So this is why I use this function. And then we are fetching the current model here by getting the get model from here. And initially, because we initialized it like that, so initially this text DaVinci 003 will be our current model. Okay, so if I change this for something else and restart the application, this one will be changed, of course. Now let's go back. And finally, we are setting here the models provider to the new model. Okay, so simply it is like that. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask me. This was all. I'll see you on the next one where we will start implementing the messages. See you there. In this tutorial, let's allow the user to start sending messages. So for that, if I go back to the API page, so here, and the Make a Request tab, here you have the documentation. So I showed you this before and we used it in the Postman. So for that, I will open it in the Postman because it would be clearer for you. So here we have the base URL, and then here is the extension of the URL. Then we added the authorization, which is the bearer token, and we have it here. And then these we can paste it for the body as raw data. And I explained this before. So here, the body, and I put it here. Okay. Now when I send request, we will get the response as follow. So we have here the ID, object, and the model name, for example. We are using the text definition 3, if you remember. And then we have the choices, and here we have the text that we need to display it for the user. So in our case, we're mostly interested with the text. And in order to access the text, we need first to access the choices list. Then inside, we need to access the text field. Okay? And here they used text as a key. And this choices, it is a list, so it might have more than one item. So let's get started and let's type this in our code. I just wanted to say that, for example, if you go back to our code and go to the API service, just try to play around with this function and try to build it by your own first. So here you can use the post method and fill up everything else so you will understand better. Now, to get started, I will go to the constants, and here, if you remember, we did this chat messages list. We have here key called message, and we have the chat index. So we can create a new file, and we can name it chat model.dart, and this will be the model class for our chat. So let's say that we can name it, for example, chat model. So, and in here, as I showed you, we will have the string, the message string, and of course it is a final, and then we can add the chat index. So I will name it here chat index, like that, and now we can create the constructor for it. So let's say chat model, and now in here we can give it the required message and then the required chat index, just like that. So this is done. Now we can proceed and start building the function and the API service. So what I'm gonna do is that I will copy this function and I will add a comment here. And then I will paste it. And let's change this name. Let's say send message. And it will take two different arguments, which are the message. So let's add a string here and we can name it message. And then we can add the model ID. Okay, like that. And now if I go to the Postman, in here in the body, we have this model. And if you remember, we allowed the user to choose his model. So this will be dynamic. And then the user will send the different messages, which is the prompt. So we will allow the user to send different messages. So this is why I'm passing it here. Okay. Now let's continue. For this one, it is a post method, and the base URL, we have it like that, but then this will be different. So in here, in our case, it will be like that. And now for the header, if you remember, we had to add in here the content type, and we have the authorization. Okay. So for the content type, I will copy it from here, and it will be application JSON. So let's go back, and we can keep this one just like that. And then here we can add the content type like that, and we need to give it the value just like we did here, just like that. Now I didn't get anything by myself. Of course, everything you will find it in this documentation. Okay, they put it here. Now let's get back to our code. For this post, you need to give it a body. And in our case, the body, I already showed it to you. So we have it here. So basically, we can just copy this. We need to call JSON encode to it and paste what we have here. Of course, the model would be the model ID we are sending. The prompt would be the message that we are sending. And the maximum token, I showed you the difference, and I'll show you again now. So now we have long test as a response, but if I put it, for example, 5 and send another request, it will give us a short answer. It won't give us the full answer, okay? But in my case, I will just keep it 100. Let's add a comma here and here. Now format our code. Okay, so now you will get a response and it will be a map again. And for the error handling, it is the same case. So now if I make any error here, for example, let's say like that, and send, I will get the same response as before, okay? So these lines, we need it also. Now, in our case, as I said before, we are interested in the choices. So we are interested in this list, and we have the text as a key. Let's get back. What I will do is to delete all of these, like that. And then let's do an if statement if we have response or if we have the choices. So what I will do basically is to check the JSON response that we already decoded, and then we give it the choices key, which is from here. And then we can check the length, because as I said, it is a list. And if the length is higher than 0, it means that we have a choices list. So we will have the text absolutely. Now what I will do basically here is that I want to print in here what we have. So I will use log, and then let's print it. Let's say like that, for example, and then we access the text. And now let's add the concatenation like that. And then we need to access the text here, like that. And in here, we are returning this list of models. But of course, in our case, no, we will return nothing for now. Okay, so now we have our function. And now let's go back to the chat screen. And in here, let's call the function send messages and send message. And we need to give it the required things. So the message will be the controller of this text field dot text, and then we need to give it the model ID, and for the model ID we need to get it from the provider. So we didn't define the provider here yet, so what I will do is to get it from here. So I'll copy this, and then we need to listen to the changes, so I'll keep it like that. And now we need to import this and import the provider library or package, and then we get it just like that. Okay, and I will log the error better than the print. Now let's restart the application and let's see what will happen. Okay, now press here. I will print something here, so let's say request has been sent, for example. Okay, so here I got this error when I pressed. So let's get back to our code. It's because for this list that we have the choices list, we didn't specify the index here, so I will use the first index and restart the application now. And now press here. Now request has been sent. Let's wait the response. And now, yeah, now it is correct. Here we have the response. Perfect. So now before that I finalize this tutorial, what I will do is the following. First, at the chat screen, let's set state our typing and put it, let's say, equal here to true. And then let's add a finally block and again put it equal to false. And of course, I'm getting an error because it is a final. We changed it here. So now I will restart it. Okay, and of course, now it's still showing here. We need to change this to false. Now restart the application again. And now it is being shown like that. Something is wrong, so let's check. And here at the if statement, only these three dots should be appearing. Okay, so only these the three dots should be inside of the if statement. So the closure will be here. Okay, now I will start it again and let's see. Here it is. Now it is working. Let's test it for the. Let's press here. And now here it is. Here's the loader. And when we have the response, it should stop. So let's wait. Perfect. Here it is. And the response is correct in here. Okay, so before that I end this tutorial, let's go back to the chat model. And if you remember in the models model, in here we have created this from JSON factory constructor. So let's do the same for the chat. So what I did is that I copy the code from there. And in our case, we need to use chat model. And we will have the message. And then we will have the chat index. So for the chat index, the key, it was chat index, so I'll keep it just like that, chat index. And in here, instead of the ID, we need to give it the message. And of course, we don't need this. And in here, it should be our chat model. So with this, we did our from JSON. Now, I think you already know what I want to do is that we need to return in here a list of chats. So let's return it here. So let's define a list of a chat model. And of course, I got an error because we need to return something. So now inside of this if statement, I will comment this line for you. And then let's define a list here of a chat model, and here capital L. So let's say list of chat model. Let's name it list or chat list, let's say. And initially it will be empty. And then this chat list, let's put it equal to, let's generate a new list from the choices list that we have. Okay, so the length will be this length, of course. And now we can call our chat model, and we need to give it the message and the ID and the chat index, Okay, first let's format our code, and now it's clear. Perfect. So for the message, again, we need to access it just like that. Okay, and instead of 0, we can access it by the index, and the index is coming from here. And as I said, this is choices. It is a list, so it might has more than one choice. Okay, so more than one item in it. Okay, and for the chat index, this is a bot, so it will be always 1, because we agreed to put the user on the index of 0 and the bot on index of 1. And finally, here we need to return our chat list. And that's it. Now, this chat list, we can access it from the message function here that we already typed. So we can define, for example, let's say final list equal to this. And if you check the type here, it is list of a chat model, because this function is returning list of a chat model. Okay, so we will manage this list in the next tutorial, and we will start showing the items on the screen So I'll see you in the next one. Hi everyone. This is an interesting tutorial where we will start showing the messages on the screen. So the messages that we are showing here are these chat messages. So let's comment it. And now, of course, we'll get some errors in the chat screen because in here we need to use the list that we need to add our messages to it. So previously here, when the user sent a message, we were doing this, and we can save this response to a list, and it will be of type chat model. So what I'm gonna do is I will copy all of this and then just add these. And now what I'm gonna do is to define a function here, and I will name it send message. Okay, so it will be future of type void, like that, and I will name it send messages or send message fct, like that, and paste what I have. So this function, it will take the model provider as an required argument, and in here we need to remove the semicolon. Okay, so it will be like that. Now let's remove this final list, and we need to define something in the state here. So not in the build, we need to define it here so that when we set state, the value will change. So let's say list chat model, like that, and let's name it chat list, and initially it will be empty. And now this chat list, we can use it here, and we can use it here. And for the item count, we need to use the chat list dot length. And in here, of course, we got an error because we can access the message like that, and then we can access the chat index like that. Okay, and it is already an int, so we don't have to use int.parse. Okay, perfect. So now let's set this chat list equal to this response here. And now to affect the changes on the screen, let's call set state here, like that. And now I will restart the application. And of course, this function, it needs to be used here. And we need to await it. Okay. And we need to give it the model provider, which is we have like that. And the same thing, we need to put it for this on submitted in here. So when the user press enter, of course, the message will be sent. Now restart it again. And let's type hello, for example, and send. Now we have this loader. And then we only get the response from the bot. Okay, so let's say hello again, and let's see what will happen. Send. And now we got different response. Okay, to make it clear, hello, what is Flutter, let's say, and press enter. And now we got different response. Okay, so now we are displaying the responses on the screen, but I want to show all the messages. And in order to do that, let's get started by adding the message, which is coming from this text field. So we need to append it to our chat list. In order to do that, in here inside of the init state, we can call the chat index.add, and now we can add the value that we want. We will add a chat model, and the message will be the text editing controller.text, and for the chat index, as we agreed, it will be 0. Okay, so this is the first step. Now I will send this message. Here it is. Now it's showing here. Okay, so once it is done, our message has been replaced. And this is because we are setting our chat list like that. So what we need to do is, I will cut this, and then we can call add all here and paste our code like that. And one more final thing is that here I wanna clear my controller. Now let's restart the application and let's see what will happen. So let's send a message, hello, let's say. Okay, the text has been cleared. And now our message still available here, and we have the response. Now let's say hello again, for example. Perfect. So we have the response here. Now let's say hello, like that, send. And now I need to scroll by myself to see the response. So this will be fixing it later on. So we will allow the user, we will scroll this list until the end so that the user don't have to scroll it by himself. And now I want to add this tutorial by unfocus this text. So when the user sent a message, I want to hide the keyboard just like that. And this is the purpose of the focus node. So let's initialize here a focus node. Focus node. And let's name it focus node just like that. And now we can initialize it here, and it will be equal to focus node just like that. Okay, now we need to dispose it. And this focus node, we need to give it to our text field. So here we need to give it the focus node just like that. And finally, for our message here, we call unfocus. Now save. We need to restart it because this value, we are initializing it in the init state. Okay, so let's say hello and press enter. And here it is. Now we clear the text and we hide the keyboard. Perfect. So in the next tutorial, we will scroll the list to the end. And after that, we will animate this text. And after that, we will implement this using the provider state management. Okay, so I'll see you there. Hi guys, this is an easy tutorial where we will scroll this list automatically when we have the long text. For example, if I send hello something, and when we receive something, it will not scroll to the end. Okay, so I want to make it scrolling automatically. Okay, so let's get started. And in order to do that, let's define a late scroll controller, and let's name it list scroll controller, like that. And now we need to initialize it here. So let's say list scroll controller equal to scroll controller, and like that. And this controller also needs to be disposed, like that. And now this controller, we need to give it to the list view.builder where we are showing the messages. So we give it the controller, like that. And now we need to type the function in order to navigate the controller. So this function, I will scroll down and we can define it here. And let's define a void function, and let's name scroll list to end, like that. And now we call our list scroll controller, and then we call animate to, and we give it what we need. So the offset, we call the list controller, and here we give it the max scroll extent. So it means that I want it to scroll to the end. And the duration, you can define a duration here, like that, and you can define it in days, seconds, minutes, whatever you want. I will put it 2 seconds. And this is a const, so let's add it. And finally, at the end, we have this curve. And if you type curves, like that, and then you will have multiple animations. In my case, I will use ease out. You can try different ones, and you can choose what suits you the most. Now this function, we can use it and the send messages here and the finally. So basically we can put it here and the set state. Now let's try it. So I will save it. Oops, we got an error because we defined this controller, the list scroll controller, and it is in the init state, so it didn't get initialized correctly. Now let's send a message. So let's say, hello, give me a long text. Let's, for example, send. And now let's say again, hello, give me another text. Okay, it didn't scroll down, but now if I say, for example, hello again, and now hit enter, let's see what will happen. Now it's scrolling automatically. I didn't touch it at all. Okay, so here it is. Our code is now working. In the next tutorial, we will animate this text. I'll see you there. Hi guys, in this tutorial, I want to animate the chat response. So in order to do that, let's go to the chat widget, and in here we are displaying this text widget. So now we need to use the animated package or animated text package that we added in the pubspec.yaml file when we added the packages. So in order to use it here, we need to check if it is the user, so we can return this text widget, but if not, we need to return the widget to animate the text. So in order to do this, there is something called animated text kit, and now you need to give it the animated text. And this is actually a list. So in here, you say typer animated text. So you give it the message, and I will trim it like that. Now I will start the application and let's see. So let's say hello. And here is the response. It's being, as you can see, it's being animated, but we cannot see it clearly, so we need to add some decoration for that. And in order to do this, we need to wrap it by default text style. And now we can give it style in here, which is basically a text style. So let's say text style, and then let's give it the color. I would give it a white color. And then for the font weight, we can give it font weight dot 700. And for the font size, let's give it font size of 16. And now let's add the const, and that's it. Now save. And here it is. Now you can control the animation here. So you can add other attributes here. So I will add the repeating animation, put it to false to not repeat the animation. And repeat forever, I will put it false also. And I will say display full text on tab. I will put it to true in our case. And the total repeat count, I will put it 1. And I think this is enough. Now save. And if I tab on it, it will continue the text. Okay, it has other attributes. You can play around with it. And for the default text style, you can add the style that you want. Okay, so I think this is all for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one. In this tutorial, I will implement a provider for the chats. We don't really need it in this application, but if our application has many screens and I want to navigate to any other screen with push replacement, then I come back to this screen. The list of messages will not be available anymore. So this is why it would be better if we use the provider state management. And also if you want to display it in another screen, it will be easier for you. So for that, let's create a new file and let's name it chat provider.dart. And here, let's say class chat or chats provider, whatever, and I will add the change notifier, and in here it should be capital S. Now, at the chat screen, in here we define this chat list. We are using it to display it in the list view.builder. Okay, and then here we are appending the user message, and then we are appending the AI message. So this is basically what we will do. We go back to the provider, we initialize a list, just like initialization of this list, paste it here, import the class, and now we need to create a getter for this list. So let's type get, or we can just copy it from here, paste this here, and then the type will be of this type, and in our case we will return the chat list, and let's say get chat list, like that. So here we created the getter for it. Now we need to create the setters. As I showed you, we have in the chat screen, we have here, we are adding the user message, and then we are adding the bot message. So let's create two functions, one to add the user message, one to add the bot message. You can do it in the same function, but just to make it clear for you, I will do two different functions. So here I will do add user message, like that, and let's give it a message as an argument, so like that. And then here we can use the same code we used here, paste it here, and now of course instead of this text we need to use the message, and now we need to call the notify listener in order to tell the chat provider to listen to these changes here and display directly the changes on the screen. Now for the second one, here for the bot message, I will copy this. It is a future function, so let's type future of type void, and then let's say send message and get answers, like that, and it will take the string message and then the chosen model. So also required string model, or let's say I will name it chosen model ID to make it clear for you. And now we need to add the async keyword here, and we can paste our function just like that. We need to import the API class, and here we need to give it the message, and here we need to give it the chosen model ID. Perfect. So now this chat provider, we need to add it in the main, just like we added the models provider. So just like that, we need to import it now, and that's it. Now we are ready to use it. So at the chat screen, let's go up, and now I will copy this, paste it again, and now let's define the chat provider. Okay, and here let's name it chat provider, like that. Now we can use this provider in order to add the user message. So here we are adding the user message. I will comment it. Let's now call the user message, but in here we don't have access to this, but so we need to pass in the chat provider as an argument here. So let's say chat provider, and now we will have access to it. So let's say in here add user message, and in our case we need to give it the message that we have, which is the text editing controller.text, just like that. And now for this one we need to give it, we can call the chat provider and then dot let's say call this function, and of course we need to give it the text, and we need to give it the chosen model. So we call this model provider. Actually here it is, and I will comment this line, and that's it. Now let's make sure, first we need to add the chat provider. Now, still having an error. Of course, we need to add it also here. And now restart our application. Okay, I will send a message after that I restart, send, and now nothing happened. So let's check what's going on. In here, it is a future function. So let's await it. And here we need to add the notify listener also. So like that. Now restart the application and let's see. So let's say hello, and now send. Okay, something is happening, but it's not showing on the screen, and this is normal. So now we need to use the chat provider instead of the list that we were using it here. So let's comment this, and now I will add comments for you just to keep it. So now we can get the chat list dot length, and we can use it instead. So I will comment this, and I will comment this for you, and now paste it like that, and then we call the index here, and then call the message, and I will copy this and do the same one, same thing here, and that's it. Now I will save. Here it is. Okay, so now I restarted the application and I will test it again. So let's send any message. So let's say hello, send, and now our message appeared. Perfect. Now let's see the answer. Okay, perfect. We have the answer also. So now we implemented the chat using also a provider. So we don't manage it just locally. We can access these chats any other screen. Okay, so with this tutorial, we finished everything related to our application. I just want to add one more tutorial about the errors, just to display the errors. If we have an error, we can show a toast or something. And as I said in the beginning of this tutorial, I might update this application and add other features. I will see what to do, and I will see what your suggestions about this app. See you in the next one. In this lecture, I will finalize everything. So let's show errors, for example, if there is an error happening. So when the user is sending a message, let's show an error here in the catch block, not just log it. So for that, I will show a snack bar. So in order to show it, you call the scaffold messenger dot of context, then dot show snack bar, like that. And now you need to give it a snack bar, and you need to give it the context. You can use, the content, and you can use the text widget. And in my case, I will use the error. And for the background, here you can use the background. Let's first format our code like that, and then here for this snack bar, you can add the background color, and it would be nice if we show the red color like that. And now I will make an error. For example, I will just, for example, cut this. Now restart the application and try to send a message, hello, for example, send, and here it is. Now we are showing this. Now let's make sure that the user cannot send an empty message. Press here. The user can send an empty message, so we need to figure out this. So in here, I will revert the changes. Let's go back to the chat screen. And now I don't want the user to send it an empty message. So what can we do is in the send message here, we can check the text editing controller.text if it is empty or not. So let's do an if statement here if it is empty. And if this is the case, let's return. So the code will stop here, restart the application, and let's see if it will work. So let's say, let's keep it empty, send. Perfect. Now I cannot send a message if it is empty. And of course, you can, for example, show another scaffold. So it would be nice to say, for example, here, please type a message like that. And let's add the const keyword here. Okay. And now press here, and here it is. It shows, please type a message. And now if I type something, of course, our code will be executed. Okay. I'm getting an error because I didn't save this file. Now, if I restart the application, it should work perfectly. Okay. Now, let's say hello, send, and it should work. Here it is working correctly. Now, I want to test if we choose to, for example, different model. Will it be correct? Or it will be always the first default model. So in order to know this, we can go to the API service, and then in the send message, we can print the model ID. So I will log the model ID like that, save, and then I will use now the ADA, for example, and let's make sure it's being chosen. Okay, here it is. Now let's send a new message, for example, hello. And now here it is, our model ID is ADA. Okay. Now I will use another different model. Let's say, for example, text ADA0001. Okay. Press hello again, send. Oops. Okay, let's type hello and now send. And now here it is, the model ID is text ADA001. Okay, so this is all. I hope that you like this course, and if you like, please consider starting the repository. And thanks a lot for attending this course, and I'll see you in the next one. Hi everyone, and welcome back. I'm glad you're here. So in this tutorial, we will fix two different things. The first one is that, for example, if you send hello or any other question, let's say, you will get weird response. So this is the first thing, we need to fix it. Then we need to allow the user only to send one message at a time to avoid spamming. So when the user send a message, we need to let him wait to get a response. Then after getting the response, we can allow him to send the other message. So let's start doing this. So we go to the chat screen and the send message function. So we can search for this function. And now in here, if you check this text controller, in here we were using it for the message. We are passing the text here, which is okay. But here I cleared this text editing controller, and then I'm using it again here, which is wrong. Okay, because this text is already null because we already clear it here. I mean empty, not null, but so it's wrong to use it like that. So basically what we can do is simply define a string, let's say here, and let's say message, and we can put it equal to the text editing controller dot text, and that's it. Now in here I can use the message, and again in here I can use the message. Now I will restart the application and I will send hello, and let's see what will happen. Okay, let's send hello. Okay, so now I'm getting a better response because he said in here, hello world. Remember, this is not exactly ChatGPT, this is this one, text DaVinci 003. So let's ask him about Flutter. He should give us some good answers. So let's say, what is Flutter? Okay, now here it is. Here's a very good answer. We can ask him any real question, for example. Let's say, what is REST API? and absolutely you will get something correct, at least. Perfect, so here it is. Now, the second thing is that I don't want to allow him to send multiple messages. So, for example, if I say hello, and then say test, and directly send it, it's hard to test it actually because the response is very fast. But yeah, I'll try again. Oh, okay. So what I'm going to do is that I will avoid this Fox node, just and I will restart the application, and let's send a hello message like that, and then let's say y, and send it again. See, directly I have these two messages here, and this is wrong. I don't want this case. So what we can do is that I will copy this if statement, and if the user is typing, because if you remember, we defined a Boolean called typing. So if this is the case, we can show the scaffold. Of course, this is scaffold. You can make it dynamic just to reduce the code if you want, but I'll just keep it like that for now. And in here, let's say you can't send multiple messages at a time. Okay, now save it. Now I will say hello and directly send something else. And see, now I got this error message. So with this, I think our application is perfect. And before that I finish, I will uncomment this, and that's it. Now I will save it and send this again, and that's it. Our application is being great. I hope that you like this tutorial, and if you like, please leave 5 stars rating and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.